Ladies and gentlemen, good morning for those of you who are based in Europe. Good afternoon for our friends in Asia. We thought that it is important when dealing with China to follow the political life of the country. And a big event in the political life of the country is the plenary session of the Central Committee of the Communist Party of China. Each year you have a plenary session, and every 5 years you have the Central Committee meeting. This time we are speaking about the third plenary session of the 20th Central Committee session of the Communist Party. It is important because the guidelines for the country are put by the party and have, of course, repercussions in the whole world due to the importance of China, due to the importance of the economy of China. It has also important repercussions for the business life in China or outside of China and in the direction of China. The best person placed to speak today about this is Bart Dessein. You all know him. Let me remind you that Professor Dessein is professor at the Department of Languages and Culture of Ghent University. He's the head of the research group East Asian Culture in Perspective. His research concerns, among others, modern and contemporary history of China, Chinese political philosophy, and New Confucianism. He has published extensively on the history of China's international relations, as well as on contemporary China issues, as well in European and in Chinese journals. He is a fellow member of the prestigious Royal Academy of Overseas Sciences in Belgium. He is the vice director of the School for Comparative Philosophy in Antwerp, and he's a honorary professor at Liaoning University and a guest professor at Shanghai University. And since 2016, he is the president of the European Association for Chinese Studies. So, Professor Dessein, dear Bart, I leave you the floor. We listen to you with a lot of attention, and I am sure you will make us aware of a lot of aspects we didn't know in the consequences of the third plenum. Bart, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for this very nice introduction. And well, wherever you are on the globe, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. So indeed, my purpose today, and thank you, Bernard, for the invitation, is to shed some light in a more broader historical perspective of the importance of the third plenum of the 20th Party Congress that has taken place a few months ago in July, 17th of July. As a general kind of observation, I would say that it is especially since 1978, the third plenum of 1978, the 11th plenum, well, the third plenum of the 11th conference, that the importance of these third plenums have come to the fore. And this, of course, has everything to do, 1978, with the beginning of the open door policies that were introduced by Deng Xiaoping. And for the first time, of course, I would say, opened major opportunities for European, including Belgian, of course, companies to do business, trade, investments in China. And this year's plenum has probably received most attention ever since 1978. And this has a lot of to do, of course, with the current situation, the change in the global order, which is undoubtedly there, and the importance of geopolitics, geoeconomics we have in the current era. So indeed, when we look back in history, since, if I look at figures, since the establishment of diplomatic relations between what was then called the European Economic Community and China in May 75, and then the first signing of a cooperation agreement between European economic communities and China in 1980, we see that Europe, including Belgium and China, have gone a long way. I looked up some figures. In 1978, bilateral trade between the then European Economic Community and China was worth 2.4 billion EQ, and it rose to 69.1 billion EQ by 1999. If you look at more recent figures, 2019, bilateral trade in goods and services between the Union and China stood at 671.3 billion euros, China becoming the EU's second trading partner, and for China, the biggest trading partner. Foreign direct investment also, we see a major increase of foreign direct investment, with for last year, last figures of the European Commission showing that the European foreign direct investment flows into China stood at 6.4 billion euro. Amazing figures, but what concerns foreign direct investment, indeed, Europe has an advantage over China, while, as we know, in the trade balance, we have an increasing advantage for China in the trade balance. So the different fields are not fully in the same line, but importance of the figures, of course, it shows how indeed the European Union and Belgium have major stakes in each other's sustainable growth and each other's prosperity and stability of the economic system. So again, this as a kind of an introduction shows how important the relationship is for us, for all of us. So where is the Chinese economy standing now at the eve of the 17th July 2024 Third Plenum? We all know China's economy is slowing down. And this has a lot to do, as one of my colleagues very aptly put it, China is a big country, but it is a normal country, in the sense that economic growth at double-digit figures yearly is something that is indeed that has its limit. So that the growth of the Chinese economy is slowing down is, of course, or is a natural phenomenon. We do know, of course, that the COVID crisis we have all experienced has had a major impact, of course, also on the slowing down of the Chinese economy. And this explains why, let's say, at the eve of the Third Plenum, Prime Minister Li Qiang mentioned his what is called, and translated from the Chinese, the 3 signals and the 3 urgent tasks for the Chinese economy. Again, I think this is important as a background against which the resolutions of the Third Plenum have been formulated. What are the signals and the urgent tasks? Signals, a continuation of tax cuts, says Li Qiang, in line with former Premier Li Keqiang's policies. This is quite interesting. I will come to the importance of that later on. An enhanced attention for foreign investment and open pursuit of liberalization of the economy, and a focus on manufacturing industries. Urgent tasks, restoring trust among private companies in the government, attracting foreign direct investment, and also very important, avoiding the middle income trap, which is a very difficult, if you look at economic history of on the globe, avoiding the middle income trap is indeed a very precarious undertaking. Manufacturing is, as Li Qiang stated, one of the domains in focus. And if I quote him, he said, quote, "The real economy, especially the manufacturing industry, is the foundation of our country's economy. With the complex and profound changes in the domestic and foreign situation, the development of our country's manufacturing industry is heading toward an important juncture. Our determination to stick to the manufacturing industry cannot be shaken." So we really see here a manufacturing industry is a core issue in the analysis, the Chinese analysis of its economy. Now, if we talk about manufacturing industries, of course, this is again, China is not unique. China is a normal country, and we all know that the growth of economies, of the new economies, Japan, Korea, have gone through the same process, manufacturing of cheap labor goods. And we also see, if you look at the double-digit growths I have referred to for the Chinese economy, this was in the beginning, indeed, of the Chinese growth, a very important aspect. Economic growth driven by the trade in cheap labor products. But this is not sustainable. China has to innovate, and China is, of course, innovating. And we can, for instance, here also, why not mention the electric vehicles? In this context, and this is important, I think, on a global scale, that we do, of course, all witness the tensions that are existing. I referred to the trade issue and the imbalance in trade for Europe and China. This, of course, also fits into the big tensions we are now having economically between the United States and Europe. And in this context of still depending less than before, but to some important extent, still depending on trade in cheap labor products, has shifted also the attention of China towards what is referred to the Global South. And the Global South has in this respect become an important supplier, also not only of energy and raw materials for China, but also for manufacturing. Manufacturing that is being outsourced also gradually by China. And this is, I would say, in the global context, a very important change we see happening. Again, if I look at some figures, and it depends a little bit, of course, on how you define the developed North and the developing South. Criteria, are not uniform there. But if you look at this change in the global order of the economy, then we see that the Global South economies were worth, let's say, 19% of global GDP in 1990, and by 2022, the share of Global South economies in global GDP had risen to 42%. So this also explains, of course, on another level, on the, China as a global actor, China and as presenting itself as a model for the Global South. If we look at global trade, my figures I gave were GDP figures. If we look at global trade, then at present, approximately 25% of global trade is South-South trade, China-Africa being very important in that respect, while South-North trade is 21% Okay, depending on the criteria, you can discuss the figures, but it is clear that the Global South, China and the Global South, is becoming a major becoming major partners on the global economic scene. If I am more specific for China-Africa trade, bilateral trade with Africa for China was in 1990 worth $2.7 billion. In 2022, it was worth $209 billion. So you can really see how important that is. So if you look at the situation, the changes in the global economic order, let's say, the state of the Chinese economy at the eve of the third plenum, how does that then indeed translate in the third plenum in the texts? I have gone through the whole texts of the third plenum and picked out some, I think, hopefully interesting insights. Very importantly, I would say the opening lines of the resolution of the third plenum of the 20th Party Congress refer to the 11th Party Congress of 1978, which I gave in my introduction. You really see how, in the Chinese perspective, this plenum is building on the very beginnings of the opening up policies of 1978, the Deng Xiaoping era. Interestingly, also in this respect, is that in the August 2024 issue of the magazine Future, which is the magazine of the Central Committee of the Chinese Communist Party, so it's very recent, a very recent article, which was written by collective the Research Institute of Party History and Literature of the Central Committee of the Communist Party of China. There's an article in this magazine that is really, I mean, in my interpretation at least, a eulogy to Deng Xiaoping. Again, affirming how the 11th or a continuation of this reference to the 11th Party Congress of 78. Deng Xiaoping is mentioned 75 times in an article of, well, a few 10 pages. So really, you see how China is building on this legacy. I also mentioned Li Qiang already, referring to the tax policies that were in use under Li Keqiang as prime minister. Well, we of course also know Li Keqiang, if you look at the party history, is in the line, let's say, of the policies of Deng Xiaoping. So also here you see, I would say, how the third plenum now we just had in July is seeing itself as a continuation of the policies of Deng Xiaoping. And this, I would say, shows that the economic pragmatism is gradually prevailing in the current situation. As I said, the Chinese economy has its issues, its difficulties, and there is, I would say, reading between the lines, kind of an awareness that the opening up as under Deng Xiaoping is necessary. I can also refer here, of course, as we know, that since November of last year, there is, for business purposes, 2 weeks free, visa-free entry into China. And this, I would say, is also clearly a sign of this awareness of the necessity of economic pragmatism. Two key terms are related or prominent in the text of the plenum. that is the new quality productive forces and the new national system. New quality productive forces referring to the need for Chinese economy to become a leading innovator in new technologies. I already referred to the batteries and the electric vehicles, the solar panels, and so on. Very interesting also here, and I will return to it in a few minutes, is the position in this development of high-tech, let's say, of the state-owned enterprises. Second term, the new national system that is also prominent in the text concerns the distributing of national resources to sectors with strategic significance. Again, this is not new. If we look at the previous catchword, let's say the dual circulation strategy, one can clearly, I would say, see the new catchwords, the new quality productive forces and the new national system as a continuation of the dual circulation strategy. What does dual circulation strategy imply? First thing is that China should rely more on its domestic consumers. And this was a concept that was especially brought in during the 2008 financial crisis. And we all know that China, relatively speaking, went through that crisis rather well, thanks to indeed the consumption of domestic consumers. For this, and there is a plan indeed that by 2030 some 540 million people would belong to the middle class. We of course need the middle class and consumers' trust to use domestic consumption as an economic dynamic force. In this respect, and I will also come to it, very important, again, not fully new, this is a gradual process, but once again, the reiteration of the need to further loosen the hukou system. The hukou system that was the household registration system that was introduced in 1958. And that since the late 70s has gradually been abandoned. And again, as I just said, there is also folks that this is necessary to further loosen the system. Indeed, I would say, because we need a growing middle class to depend on consumption. Consumption also, of course, of high-tech goods. And this is then the second element, I would say, in the dual circulation strategy, the development of high-tech technologies. And independence, de-risking is the term we now use for that, and we can discuss the applicability of this term. I also have my reservations with the term, but anyway, and we see indeed that also China is trying to, again, sorry for the word, de-risk. That is not a new process. Also here, figures show that actually the whole process and the dynamics in the world economy of what I prefer to call diversification has already set in 2016. So it's not, I mean, not something that really started with COVID, or you can really see in the figures that this is starting already in 2016. So new quality productive forces, and the it's clearly, I would say, a continuation of the dual circulation. The new national system, and this is the government, state, let's say, in general terms, that is indeed allocating funds to create new industries, high-tech. Again, no big surprises. If you look at the current composition of the Central Committee of the Communist Party, there is, let's say, 50-50 division approximately between members who have a high-tech background, space technology, advanced technologies, and who is much more or has a rather business background. So even there you see this this double aspect, I would say, of business and innovation. As I said, the role of state-owned enterprises, quite interesting, is that from one of the major think tanks in China has also made an analysis of the Third Plenary text, and they state, I quote the study, additionally, state capital can orderly exit certain competitive industries and enterprises due to previous investment errors or management failures. There are a number of so-called zombie companies that have been loss-making for years and should be eliminated through bankruptcy or restructuring processes. Underperforming SOEs in competitive sectors should undergo restructuring, ownership transfer, or direct acquisition by private capital. And I think this is a very remarkable statement in the analysis that state-owned enterprises are important, but they will have to face the competition, let's say, of the private sector in the development of high-tech. The new national system. This also has a lot of impact on one of the problems, of course, we all know in China is the inequality in income. One of the major grounds is related to the household registration system. So also, therefore, it has to be gradually made more, well, abolished gradually. And this, again, is a continuation of the Hu Wen period, Hu Jintao, Wen Jiabao. So a former president and prime minister, who, as we all know, of course, as I said, and double-digit growth of the Chinese economy in the Deng Xiaoping era, leading to inequality, urban and rural differences, and so on, an increasing wealth gap between the different people in China. And so already in the Hu Wen period, Hu Jintao Wen Jiabao period, we see that measures were taken for redistribution of wealth. This has also sometimes been referred to the Hu Wen period in literature, in academic literature, has often also been referred to as the red-green years. Red pointing to the redistribution of wealth, and green, again, not new, the beginning of the awareness in China of the necessity to have a green economy. That the Chinese EVs are what they are is the result already of something like 20 years ago, 15 years ago, and this awareness that the green transition was necessary. And this is also a point, if you talk to Chinese, if I talk to my Chinese colleagues and policymakers, this is something where also green economy, health issues, food security, and these are domains where the EU and Belgium is very much appreciated, and where further collaboration and cooperation is wanted. So also here in the new plenum, we see the continuation of this importance of income distribution. Again, this is economic theory and social theory, but if you look indeed at the Gini coefficient, as it is called, and the Chinese Gini coefficient is not the best of the world at this moment. It is indeed necessary that you kind of rebalance. Of course, there will always be differences. A society without any difference, according to the economic theory, social theory, does not function as neither. So there has to be a kind of a dynamic that develops. And because people want see the possibility to improve their life conditions, to improve their wealth and welfare, and then this is a stimulus, of course, also for economic growth. And well, the circle is round. Yeah. So also there we see this awareness. Okay. A quote in this respect from the document, allowing, in English then, allowing people to obtain household registration and access basic public services in their place of permanent residence. This is indeed what is very important, because now migrant workers, as they are called, they go to the cities, but they remain registered in the countryside, and that is where their social welfare is. And of course, this is not sufficient for social welfare in the more expensive cities. So this is a very important element, I think, and that we have. This will be necessary also if you look at European economic history. The farmers and the peasants have, through their engagement and participation in industrial development, have indeed almost automatically developed into the middle class, because they were changing their status. And because of the hukou system, you have a kind of an in-between system. You are, on the one hand, a worker in the industries, but on the other hand, you remain, by the hukou system, a peasant or a farmer. And so, and you cannot, in this sense, really make an urban middle class, and you need an urban middle class for domestic consumption, for domestic investment, and people who are more well off will be more ready. Of course, they have the money to invest. So this is, I think, a very major issue that has indeed been addressed in the third plenum. The change, gradual change in the hukou system. This so what are the major elements in China's current economic or difficulties? The looming middle income trap, again, I think very nice, or very importantly, this is related to the hukou system. A graying population, a quite important youth unemployment, and also debts of the local governments. I would say that probably, okay, we can discuss that, but these are the 4 of the major problems in China's current economic situation. Graying population, that one of the measures that is being taken, is also mentioned in the text, is that retirement age will be revisited, so it will be increased, the retirement age, but also we see that in the text it is mentioned that job opportunities for elderly people will be developed. We also see a focus on social welfare, so a better pensions system, better health insurance, also for the countryside. Again, this will all help, of course, in alleviating, in the end, the middle income trap. Youth unemployment. This has to do with the fact that China has very good universities, very well trained students, but that at this moment, again, this relates to the middle income trap, that at this moment the job opportunities in high-tech and advanced industries or less, let's say, than the number of well-educated people, well-formed, well-trained people who come on the labor market every year. And so also there, if I said, this is something actually only starting in the Q1 period, and the focus on green energy, climate change, health issues, and so on. And these are, of course, the sectors that can help indeed create jobs in the high-tech sector, and for which further working together with Europe, with Belgium, is important. This again, awareness, and to use that word, was also mentioned by Xi Jinping. He delivered a speech on February 7, 2023, at the seminar, as it is called, Seminar on Studying and Implementing the Spirit of the 20th National Congress of the Communist Party of China. And in this speech, he says, I quote, "In the new period of reform and opening up," this is Deng Xiaoping, "and socialist construction," this is the new national system, "our party has made a historic decision to shift the center of the party and the country's work to economic construction. And promoting Chinese-style modernization is a systematic project that requires important relations, such as, once again, Deng Xiaoping, opening up to the outside world." So I think this is an important message. I do know that in the media we have kind of other messages very often, but this is the message, the statement by Xi Jinping himself, and the acknowledgement of the importance of opening up. And again, the resolution starts with mentioning Deng Xiaoping. Recent texts of the Central Committee of the Communist Party mention the importance of Deng Xiaoping and opening up, and so on. As for development areas, we do know, and this may be important, of course, for our own companies, that two-thirds, at this moment, two-thirds of the, approximately, two-thirds of the gross domestic product of China is created in two regions, and that is the Yangtze River Delta, Shanghai, let's say, and the Pearl River Delta, so Guangzhou, Hong Kong, Auman, and so this area. This is, if you look at it from a broader perspective, this is of course great that you have these big economic centers, but if approximately two-thirds of your economic product are made in two regions, this is not sustainable. This is leading to an income gap within the country. And so it is very important that you also have other regions, assist other regions in economic development, so as to rebalance the revenue, the wealth, the welfare, and so on. And this is also acknowledged in the text, where we see that the text mentions that there will be, and I have lived there like 30 years ago, I know the problem, that there will be a revitalization of the Northeast. I have been living in the Northeast something like 30 years ago, and this is the reconversion of the Northeast. The Rust Belt of China is indeed a very slow process. I mean, you can, but it is put in the focus, and I think it's very important. Development of the Beijing-Tianjin-Hebei region, which has also in Chinese its own name, Jingjinji, it's called. This has to become a megalopolis. And this is very important, that also the, let's say, administrative heart of China, Beijing and area, becomes a economic pole in, let's say, similarity with the Yangtze River Delta and the Pearl River Delta. So this is put into the focus continuation of the Yangtze River Delta and the Pearl River Delta, and then also a solid progress in developing the Chengdu-Chongqing economic zone. And this is indeed something that we have really witnessed in the last 10 years or something, and this new focus on Chengdu-Chongqing, which is, well, historically speaking, in the West, but now central China, and is also a very important place for connections with through the so-called Belt and Road Initiative. A very important place. Chengdu is one of the hubs on the Belt and Road Initiative, with also connections to Southeast Asia and to South Asia. So connections to Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, and then the whole Southeast Asian area, Vietnam, and so on. So this is also something, and also in this respect, it is stated in the document that China will work at developing hubs, local hubs in the periphery, so in this area. So this is also, we see how China is also in this respect trying to rebalance, let's say, the domestic economic landscape. Other elements we mention, or that are mentioned, sorry, is the further internationalization, of the RMB, of the Chinese currency, with developing of offshore RMB markets. Yeah, and also very important, I would say, is the focus or the statement that there will be the promotion of alignment, I quote from the text, promotion of alignment with high standard international economic and trade rules. So China is, and also, maybe first say this, also a quote, safeguarding the WTO-centered multilateral trading system. And I think this is, again, very important in the context in which we are, narratives are what they are, and we very often hear adverse statements and analysis about China and its development. If you look in the text of the Third Plenum, you really see the continued engagement of opening up and of engagement within the existing systems of global governance. And I would say this is not a surprise in the sense that, of course, the wealth of China is thanks to the fact that China has become part of the international system of the existing Bretton Woods and later systems. This notwithstanding, we do see, as I already mentioned, of course, and this has to do with the general development of the global economy, we do see that the importance of China within the global South and the importance of the global South as such is increasing, and this is something also we Europeans, Belgians, and our companies have to be aware of. The playing field has changed. But be that as it may, China is, again, reading the documents, not striving for an alternative world order. They are basically working within the world order that has created their prosperity. To conclude, low-hanging fruits, as they were in the 80s, have gone. We have competitors on the market and in the economic domain. But I do see in continuation since the late 70s, early 80s, a awareness that it is economic pragmatism that will bring China further up on the economic ladder, and that if you look at this moment, we have recently seen the emergence, at least in our media, of competitors on the market. Let's say India is being mentioned, Bangladesh is being mentioned, Cambodia, Vietnam as alternatives to China. But if you look at the efficiency of the Chinese system, if you look at the experience they have built up since, let's say, the late 70s, if you look at the infrastructure that has been developed in China, then opportunities in China are still there. China still is a very competitive global economic partner. But once again, double-digit growth, we will not see them again. There are competitors on the market, and to put it that way, the low-hanging fruits, they are no more there. But this does not mean, of course, that there are no opportunities or that there still are lots of economic opportunities in China. And I think it's important, if you see indeed how the economic pragmatism is present in the third plenum text, that we grasp these opportunities. Thank you. If you have questions, I'm ready to answer them.
Thank you very much, Bart. Thank you for your expose. I note that the third plenum of the 20th Central Committee Session Congress is in direct line with the third plenum in 1978. That is something very important, and we know that that plenum then was of utmost importance because it was at the beginning of the opening up policy, the four modernizations, and it was under the impulse of Deng Xiaoping, who's now also has been extensively mentioned in the Chinese press, especially on his anniversary of his birth, and what we see now is, from what I learned from you, is that you insist that China is still opening up. That is also an important message from the plenum. We see that there is a continuation of the tax policy, the pursuit of liberalization, the modernization of the economy. You have commented extensively on that. You have also noticed that the Prime Minister Li Qiang was referring to the tax policies of Li Keqiang, himself continuing Deng Xiaoping's policy. We see also that, of course, China is facing many challenges, but taking some measures. One of them will be the loosening of the hukou system to help reduce the gap between urban and rural areas. You insisted also on the accent put on the development of the high-tech technologies. China having its own de-risking policy, which is interesting because we always speak about de-risking here in Europe, but well, when we speak in Europe, you have also the fact in China. We see that the government is wanting to tackle the companies, the state-owned companies who are not making any profit, who are, like they call it, zombie companies, and who are facing competition of private companies. And what is also interesting in the resolutions of the plenum is that the accent is also put on letting private companies develop, which is also, I think, a good sign. You have mentioned among the difficulties the graying population with increase of retired people, and then measures had to be taken for job opportunities for the older people, the youth unemployment, which is also a kind of result of a good education system at university level. You mentioned also the fact that 2/3 of the gross domestic production is coming from the Yangtze River Delta and the Pearl River Delta, with the need then to develop other regions. It's not the first time the government mentions it, but he's insisting of revitalizing the Northeast, the development of the Beijing-Hebei region, the Chengdu-Chongqing economic zone, which are there to be developed further, and the further internationalization of the renminbi, and that is also interesting from what I learned from you, so safeguarding the WTO multilateral system, which means the opening up of the economy is still there. So, Bart, thank you very much. Now we have the possibility for some questions, and don't hesitate to put it in the chat box. I had a first question, maybe. You nearly did not mention the Belt and Road Initiative. And does the plenum mention it, deal with that? Because we know that the Belt and Road Initiative was also the child of President Xi. So where are we now?
Yeah. Okay. First of all, thank you, Bernard, for the very nice summary you made. As for the Belt and Road, it is interesting question. It is there, but it is definitely not in the focus, which may indeed come as a surprise. And I think this has, how to say, indeed it was the kind of it was introduced in 2013 by Xi Jinping, and it has interesting if you look at the documents relating to the Belt and Road Initiative. So the first documents, 2013, basically only speak about the Belt and Road in respect to China's periphery, and this, if you look historically, again. I believe in continuations in history, is to be seen as the successor to the Go West policy we had in the previous period, and which took advantage, if you want, or took the opportunity, to put it more neutral, of the demise of the Soviet Union and the potential economic or the economic potential of the Central Asian countries. It is not an accident, or not by accident, that the launching of the BRI was mentioned in Kazakhstan. And then as time went on in the official documents relating to the BRI, we see how gradually the range or the axial radius of the BRI was expanded to indeed Europe and to the rest of the world. So it was really a gradual development. So from that perspective, I do not think that BRI was from the very outset seen as a kind of a world encompassing, globe encompassing project. The BRI comes with a lot of issues, in the sense that to to be for economic partners, you have to be with at least with two, so everything depends on local initiatives, and big infrastructure projects have been made, some with more success than others. But we see that, I would say, that in the current tense situation in which we are living, I mean, and then there's not a value judgment, it's just, you know, an observation, and that indeed relations with China or from Europe, from the United States, more tense than they used to be. That as a result of that, the Belt and Road Initiative has been much kind of scaled down, in the sense that big infrastructure projects, long-term engagements, are diminishing, and to the favor, let's say, of small scale, almost medium and small enterprise scale kind of initiatives, on which then retroactively the term BRI is pasted. So in the sense, so it's really, I mean, I think it has to do, and the decrease of the importance, in a sense, of BRI, I don't say in rhetoric or narrative, but in the actual economic output, has to do with the change, the general change on the global economic scene.
We have a question from Mr. Marcel Halma from Solvay. His question is, considering the economic situation, China apparently wants to export itself out of the economic situation to maintain their growth target with overcapacity in many markets that will probably create new tensions. So do you consider this a medium-term viable solution?
Yes, and there is indeed, in the middle term, we will indeed come to difficult to tensions. That is obvious. I think that for many, well, for some of, if I look, sorry, from European perspective, then I think that China works, I would say, in three levels. They have their call it BRI, kind of a global aspiration, as all big powers have. China is no exception. Then they have their more regional collaborations, such as the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, which is started off as a collaboration with Central Asia. I just mentioned it in the context of BRI, and has been expanding. And then you have the, call it local relations. And China is using, and I don't mean that in a negative way, and they are using the channels which are conducive for certain domains. And this is, I think, where we, in our dealings with China, that we have to know. For instance, we have European trade policy. We do not have a European industry policy. And then, of course, it is and then we see, of course, how, again, this is the natural way of things. This is not a critique as such, that if we look now at electric vehicles, and that, for instance, France and Germany are having different policies. So, and of course, this is, well, we then have to ask ourselves, I would say, in the European Union, how do we deal with that? Do we not need probably a European Union industrial policy? And of course, this will take time if we ever get there. And this also, of course, will mean that in the middle term, we will have these kind of frictions and tensions that we will have to overcome.
Thank you. Question from your colleague, Professor Tarouet from University of Ghent. Although the promotion of opening up, many companies mention that they experience more and more constraints to settle and operate. What is your comment?
Yeah. What we I think this is what also, of course, I mean, know and hear these comments. I think we have to figure or to see that in a larger frame, in the sense that you do see, and this has indeed increased under the Xi Jinping period, that the power of the Communist Party is increasing, and there is the presence of representatives of the Communist Party in the big companies and so on. And so this is, I would say, if you look at the texts again, political texts, it's all about stability, and this is important, of course, stability. I mean, in an unstable situation, you have tensions and and chaos, and you know, and it's not good for the economy. Deng Xiaoping also said that we need stability, and so there is this kind of because of the as I said, the divide in welfare gap. And many other issues, unemployment and so on, and there is a big uneasiness, tensions in society, and as a reaction to that, you indeed see the increasing presence, let's say, of rules and political interference, the new national system, as it is called, in the economy, and this, of course, is obstructing for companies. But on the other hand, as I said, and try to explain, you also have this awareness and this economic pragmatism awareness, and that, well, we will have to be open to further develop, and that there will be at some point, I think, a rebalancing. I think that for the sake of the economy, that it's again, China is very good in that, in you know, in gradual developments, and that let's say the new national system, so the interference, let's say, of politics in the economy is there, has increased, but that this will as with the Hukou system, will gradually again be diminishing for the purpose of economic growth and economic pragmatism. Again, this will not happen from today to tomorrow, but this is, I think, the inevitable process we will see. And do not ask me to put a year when that will happen, but it will, I think, you know, yeah, for the stability of the country, on the one hand, balancing against, indeed, economic development. This is my kind of how I see this.
Thank you. A question from Mr. Ronald Reunis. We have had elections in several European countries, and there will still be. Very recently, in a local election in Germany, we see that far-right parties are coming up. Will this have effect on relations with China? Will this go to higher economic sanctions with higher tariffs eventually for customs duties? What is your comment?
Mm-hmm. Interesting question. Not an easy one. We do indeed see, but this is a very simple answer probably. We do indeed see that the extreme right is on the rise everywhere in Europe. We also see that even now, I think in Thüringen, that a government with the extreme right is less likely. I do know there are cases in Europe where we have extreme right parties in the government. So can they be a kind of, you know, the first signs of how relations will continue? I do not know. if you look at Italy, Italy was the only European country that had a memorandum of understanding, EU country, sorry, that had a memorandum of understanding in the framework of the Belt and Road Initiative. They have, on, if I'm not mistaken, the 6th of December last year, have discontinued this engagement. So then you could say indeed that you see the extreme right is making collaboration with China more difficult. But on the other hand, a couple of weeks ago, the same Italian government has been negotiating on with China on in the field of the automotive sector. So I think again, I cannot, you know, well, it's difficult to tell, but I think that also in the end, as in China, that you will have the kind of the tension between politics and economic liberalism, and that the economy will, I mean, or the reality of the situation will, in the end, bring us to the victory of the liberal economy. I mean, closing ourselves off of China will also, for the extreme right, will be at a very huge cost for ourselves. So populist parties and extreme right parties, they have no benefit in an economy that goes down. So I think I am not too pessimistic about that.
Okay, we have two last questions. One from Mr. or Mrs. Liu. What do you expect from this week FOCAC summit, the summit now with African countries and African head of states that just started?
Thank you for that question. I must say that I am not really specialized in the African situation. I know given some figures of the importance, but I think that in generally speaking, for China Africa, that also here China is very pragmatic. In one of my publications, I have coined the term silent pragmatism. And I think that is indeed what China does. And FOCAC is indeed, well, it's a union or a group of African countries. Not all of them are there. But that, as I said, China is working in different levels. And of course, I mean, the ultimate thing is, of course, a kind of a global approach. But if that doesn't work, well, China has its regional platforms, and if that doesn't work, it is a member state thing. And so also here, I think, depending on the issues that are being discussed now in the FOCAC meeting, that we will have, well, we will see the same kind of feature, depending on the domain and on the responsibilities and duties of political bodies. There we will see, you know, well, a very diversified approach. And this is, as I said, what I have some time ago coined as silent pragmatism.
Okay, thank you. And last question again from Professor Tarwe. Any comment on the construction and operation of the deep sea water port in Peru? We go from Africa to South America.
That's, yeah. Okay. In a comment there. Well, again, the very concrete situation there, I should, you know, study in more in depth to have some, you know, some very precise answer. But I can probably place that into the general policies of China, and that is indeed the importance. It's also part, of course, of a Belt and Road. The general importance of infrastructure, including ports, including canals, etc. That, as any big power, China is, of course, also trying to have certain way of control of sea lanes, of ports. Control is a big word, of course, but it's natural that through engagement, of course, you have some leverage there. And then again, it is up to the partners, let's say, of China in all these different respects to make good agreements and good deals. China is in this respect a partner, I would say, as any other partner. Also with other partners, you have to make good, sound contracts and do in this sense de-risking. So and this is I mean, this I would say again is from both sides. It's really. And you also see that in Africa. And also in Africa, we do know that some of the Chinese investments were not to the satisfaction of the African people. Well, the African people of these countries were also reproaching their own governments for having bad deals. So also here I would say that it is up to Peru to make a sustainable deal there.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Professor Dessein. Thank you, Bart, for your comments. Thank you for your expose, which was very deep and giving us a better knowledge of what will in the following months be the China policy in economy, but also in the international world, being for the North-South relation or the South-South relations. I would say that it's also interesting to see that from what you said, there are still opportunities for our companies in China. But your expose shows also that we need China watchers like you to guide us through this Chinese policy, the Chinese culture. And also, I think we need more and more students studying sinology, studying the Chinese culture, studying also the Chinese language. At a time when we try, some people speak of closing borders, some people speak of also universities not accepting too many foreign students. I think personally, on the contrary, that we need more exchanges, and your department in Ghent is a lighthouse for that, definitely. So thank you very much.
We try to keep the light on.
Okay.
Okay.
We'll provide some electricity.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Bart,
thank you.
for
thank
this.
You for inviting me, and thank you to all for listening in.
And I would propose our listeners to continue to follow us. You have information on our website. You will receive invitations to our next activities. So please come. We have an activity this week where we receive an important delegation from Shenzhen here in Brussels. It is free of charge and you are more than welcome. We have another activity on the 10th of September. We will meet the new Chinese ambassador, Mr. Fei, on the 12th of September, and we will have a new webinar on taxation in China on the 18th of September. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your attention. Thank you, Professor Dessein. Thank you, Bart, for your expose, and see you at one of our next activities. Thank you very much. Goodbye.